Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm excited to share my recent trip to India, though a bit delayed. In particular, I want to share a hack that I made good use of and which was an eye-opener for me. It could come across as very middle class, and some of you may even be aware of it, and some of you may have even used it. But I'm sure there are loads of travelers who are not aware of this. So let me tell you what it is. Are you aware of the long layover options with free accommodation in the city of layover, provided you travel via certain airlines, via certain airports? If you are not aware, then here is the good news. There are options. In particular, I am talking about transiting via UAE with certain airlines such as Etihad, Emirates and others. I also learned it is not just UAE where such options exist, but also in other countries as well. I have left some links in the description below for you to check. So I was planning my trip to India with Etihad, and while booking the ticket, the Etihad portal gave me an option for a 2-day layover in Abu Dhabi with free hotel accommodation in Abu Dhabi. At the first sight, I assumed there may be a catch and probably there will be some hidden fee. But then I decided to check it out after mentally preparing myself to bear any additional costs, as long as it doesn't get out of hands. To my pleasant surprise, there were no hidden costs or catch. All I had to do was to select the hotel of my choice among the options presented by Etihad and go ahead with the booking. It is possible to lay over either during the onward or during the return journey, but not on both. And I believe such layovers with free accommodation is possible only if you are transiting via a particular city, not if the city is the destination itself. I'm not sure about it though, I will check it out later. Since I traveled from Frankfurt to Chennai via Abu Dhabi, I was eligible for this 2-day layover with free hotel accommodation. The transit visa application is also through the Etihad portal, which makes the process very easy. And yes, I had to pay the transit visa fee, which is the normal fee. It costs 55 dirhams, which is roughly around 13 euros. If I'm getting the visa at a normal cost and I'm getting 2 days of free accommodation, then why should I not take it? For me, this is a great option to get a feel of a new country. So I took the option and I decided to stay in Abu Dhabi for 2 days and book the flight tickets months in advance. I got the email confirmation from the hotel immediately after booking. The day of the journey finally arrived. I was all set for my travel. After a grueling project submission, I needed this break. I started my journey from Berlin. I took the Deutsche Bahn from Berlin direct to the Frankfurt airport. During all my previous trips to Frankfurt, I have taken Flixtrain, but this time I am trying Deutsche Bahn as it goes to the Frankfurt airport directly, and it was well worth it. Since I booked it months in advance, I got the tickets for a really low fare. I'm happy that I made the decision because the Deutsche Bahn journey is a class apart. Deutsche Bahn over the years has become notorious for delays, so I chose the timings with the ample buffers to accommodate delays. The train started on time. It is a 4.5 hours journey during daytime in spring in a near empty coach. What more can I ask for? The train clocks impressive high speeds. The lush green countryside of Germany is magical during spring, and soon I reached Zenmod, which stayed with me till the end of the train journey. The train reached the Frankfurt airport station on time as well. At the Frankfurt Deutsche Bahn station, I decided to exchange currency, which was a big mistake. The rates were terrible, which was no surprise. From the Deutsche Bahn station, I had to take a shuttle bus to Terminal 2 to take the flight. I'm way too early as usual. I have a lot of time to kill, so I explored the terminal a bit and tried to get some footages. The Frankfurt airport, which was once a marvel and world class, is no more the same. The airport is still clean, efficient, handles a lot of traffic, but pales in comparison to the modern swanky airports in many parts of the world, including the Berlin-Brandenburg airport. Disclaimer, I have traveled only via Terminal 2, so my opinion is limited to that. I was pleasantly surprised to see the water fountain in the airport. My surprise is because I have not seen a water fountain in the Berlin airport. I wait to check in and finally it is time. The check-in is smooth. The ground staff is very polite and professional. The immigration was smooth and fast as usual. The German immigration staff are some of the politest that I have ever seen. The security check-in is almost close to the boarding gates, which is a bit unusual since most of the airports have the security check immediately before or after the passport control. The waiting lounges inside are far better. I have time to kill even before the security check-in. Finally, it is time to board. My sequence comes early since my seat is towards the rear end of the flight. The flight was uneventful, the food was decent, nothing spectacular but decent. There is in-flight entertainment, but the reformatted versions for the small screen never amuses me. Not just in this flight, but in any flight for that matter. The problem is me, not the entertainment itself. As the flight descends in Abu Dhabi, I could see how the seas have receded to give way to the desert. It's marvelous. I'm all excited as I get down in Abu Dhabi. I have transited via this airport earlier, but this is the first time I'm setting foot in this man-made marvel of a country. UAE is home to one of the largest Indian diasporas in the world. 38% of the population in UAE is of Indian origin. I'm curious to know what makes this place so sought after, besides money of course. It is a long walk inside the airport to reach the passport control, which proceeds smooth. Almost all the airport's operation staff, except for the ones at the passport control and the police, seem to be from African or Asian nationalities. The passport control is swift and I guess it works with facial recognition because while returning there was no passport control. There were only automated gates that scans and lets you through. After luggage collection, I proceed to take the bus. On the way to the bus stop, I see the currency exchanges. This is where I realized, in hindsight, how stupid my decision was to exchange currency at the Frankfurt Deutschbahn station. The rates at these exchanges, even at the airport, were far better than what I got at Frankfurt. Something to keep in mind for future. I decided to take the bus for two reasons. First, I got used to taking buses, trams and trains across Europe to reach the main city, so cabs are not even in my consideration list. Second, public transportation is the cheapest anywhere in the world. I had to buy the Halifat card at a counter outside the airport that costs 20 dirhams or 30 dirhams depending on our choice. I took the 20 dirhams one which gives 10 dirhams credit. The other 10 dirhams is the card fee itself. In hindsight, I realized I should have taken the 30 dirhams card. I proceeded to the bus waiting area where I see a small crowd who seem to be regular users of these buses. The rest of the passengers seem to have vanished somewhere else. Perhaps they know better than me and took the taxis, and I soon realized why. The moment the bus arrived, which is after a good 20 to 30 minutes of wait, there was a mad rush to get in. Since I had luggage, I had to stow it in the luggage hold before boarding the bus. So, I was the last to get in and I had to stand, which is no big deal. But I saw some puzzled look among the fellow commuters. Perhaps it is not allowed to commute while standing, or perhaps I was stupid enough to not fight for a seat. When a passenger got down, one person literally rushed me to make me sit in an empty seat. Finally, I reached the hotel. It is the premier in Abu Dhabi at the capital center. It is a 4-star hotel. The room was decent, the check-in was smooth. I was half expecting the routine, oh, we did not get informed from the airlines, or you must pay these additional charges and so on. But none of that happened. It was completely free as promised. Only that it did not offer complimentary breakfast, which is fine. The room meets international standards, clean, functional, modern, and with a high-speed internet. There is complimentary water, coffee and tea, and that's all I need. I'm not a fussy traveler. When I asked for the coffee refill, the housekeeping staff gave me loads of refill, politely. The biggest downside is since I'm a first time traveler to Abu Dhabi, I did not have a good orientation of the city to decide where to stay, and I chose this hotel among the many choices listed on the Etihad portal, assuming it is close to the main localities given the name was Capital Center. However, this locality is a bit isolated and more business-like. So, eating out options were limited, and it took a long commute to reach the happening parts of the city. Even though it is closer to the airport by cab, access to it by public transportation takes forever, and it is way too time consuming. I suggest you research well while choosing the hotel. In the 2 days, I explored the city a bit. Sightseeing was not in my agenda. What was more important to me was to get a good feel of the city, to walk around and watch life as people live day to day. I skipped breakfast and I had sandwiches for brunch, which is not so cheap given the locality of the hotel. But noticeable are two things. First, the portions are larger compared to Germany. Second, the hotel and restaurant staff are way more polite and customer friendly compared to any part of Europe. For dinner, I indulged in Filipino food the first day and Persian food the second day. I visited the Corniche to watch the sunset. The next day, I tried walking around during the daytime and I realized how stupid that idea was. Having spent 40 years of my life in India, I'm no stranger to hot weather, so I thought I was a tough guy. Not anymore. Little did I realize that I have lived in air-conditioned bubbles since my early 20s, that is when I started working. And I have lived more than 7 years in this cold and grey Berlin, which has brought down my ability to withstand high heat and humidity. So, when I decided to take a walk during daytime, the thermal shock was a bit too overwhelming and I started sweating buckets. The learning: get your transportation in order. Stay in places that are easily accessible by public transportation. Or if you have a generous budget, take cabs. Abu Dhabi does not have a tram or train service. Practically everyone wants a car here. Fuel is cheap, you see. However, there is one big letdown to this whole arrangement. Etihad offered some free perks as well. One of that was shuttle bus that picks and drops at select attractions. I chose to use that to visit the Grand Mosque. However, that ended up being an unreliable option. The hotel staff did not know about it. They said it is operated by the government and they do not know where the bus stops. However, they indicated doubtfully a spot where I waited, but the bus never turned up. The hotel staff also said it is doubtful whether the buses will operate during that time of the year because the exhibitions were happening. This hotel is just next to the exhibition center. I should have listened to him. Learnings and more learnings. I end up my short 2 days trip in this country that changed my perception in many ways. Travel makes you shed preconceived notions and allows you to form new perceptions that are a lot closer to reality. My earlier perception was cities in Gulf nations are lifeless. It is all about the daily grind, slaving out in sweltering heat with no chance of life. While all of that may be true for a big chunk of the workers here, what I also see is a nation with immense potential, resources and life. It showcased how a single resource, oil, can create infrastructure and purchase services from the best in the world. Also, the massiveness of Abu Dhabi, both in terms of the size of the city and the scale of the projects, blew me away. After my 2 days visit, while I take the cab back to airport, I am determined that I will visit this country again to explore more with better preparations. I understood the real reason behind why the government promotes such free and easy visits for short-term travelers like me. Before this trip, Abu Dhabi was never in my consideration list for travel, for business or for living. This trip made me reconsider those. I am more likely to visit the city again. The next leg of the journey, that is a flight to Chennai, was a disappointment. I was disappointed with the aircraft. was an Airbus A320 with the standard 3+3 configuration. This leg of the journey is a watered-down version of the journey from Frankfurt to Abu Dhabi. It took a while for me to understand why. Now I realize why it is important to understand flight models and seating configurations and know which are the narrow body flights when the flight options show while booking the tickets. I was sulking the entire journey, but I was wise enough to stay calm on the surface. I landed in Chennai, which literally brought me to the ground. The immigration was smooth. There is a security scan after the passport control. I don't know for what reason. Perhaps to catch the gold smugglers, which I believe is an issue. After that, some random officers stopped to ask some questions. I was stopped and asked where I am coming from, and then I was let go. Then baggage collection. On the way out, customs officers stop people at random to check the baggage. I was not stopped, but so many checks. I make my way to the cab pickup point, which is in a different block. Someone new to the city will get lost trying to find this place, as I did when I landed a few years ago. Chennai Airport is not among the prestigious airports in India, but is one of the most functional airports, and the ease of access is unbeatable. The good thing that I noticed this time is the government has started allowing the public transportation buses inside the airport. But they could do something about the quality of buses that fly to the airport and run some nicer, modern electric buses. Also, there is metro train connectivity that makes commuting really easy. Without a heavy or fragile luggage, I would any day choose the metro train or the suburban train to the airport. I take an Uber to get home, and I wind up here as I get used to the familiar Chennai roads and the chaotic traffic. I'll cover the other part of my stay in India in another video. Thanks for staying. I'll see you in the next. Till then, bye bye.